dias or buenas tardes, depending on what time you're listening to this. We're going to learn about OTUE stem changing verbs today. OTUE stem changing verbs, you can't tell if you just look at the verb, if you just look at almorzar by itself without seeing this, you can't tell that it's a stem changing verb, which is why it's so important to take note, to make a mental note when we're looking at our vocabulary of the UE in parentheses. That's our big clue. That's what tells us that these verbs are OTUE stem changing verbs. And from here on out, we need to make a very big effort to memorize these and recognize them in the future as OTUE stem changing verbs. Or remember, we can also call these boot verbs. All right. So, all verbs have a stem and an ending. We know that already. But just to review, the ending will always be either AR, ER, or IR. In almorzar, my ending is AR. And my stem is what's left over. Almorz. That's my stem. In Spanish, some verbs have a stem change in the present tense. Now, on the pre-quiz, one of the questions was, what's the difference between a stem changing verb and a regular verb? Well, this is it. Stem changers have a change in the stem and the ending. Regular verbs do not. They just change endings. We, at the end of this unit, will know how to stem change E to IE stem changers like entender. We learned that last unit. O to UE stem changers, like almorzar, we're going to learn in this video, and E to I stem changers, which will come in a future video, but we will be doing that for this unit as well. All right, let's get to it. For O to UE stem changing verbs, the O in the stem changes to UE in all forms except nosotros and vosotros. Hopefully this sounds familiar to you because this is the same lesson that you got about E to IE stem changers with different letters in here. So we have almorzar over here, and if we take a look at our stem, it's almorz. I'm going to drop my AR. Remember, that's how we conjugate regular verbs. We drop the ending, we add the appropriate ending. We're doing the same thing now. We're just taking an extra step to change this O here to UE. Now, we don't do that in all forms. Remember, in nosotros and vosotros, we do not. So if we take a look at the forms where we do stem change and we outline it, it looks like a boot. That's why we call these boot verbs. Okay, we change the O to UE here and not here or here. So here's an example. Yo almuerzo. Okay, so I found my stem, took off my ending, changed the O to UE. Then I added my appropriate ending for yo form. O, almuerzo, to almuerzas. Now, if I look down further, almorzamos does not change O to UE, because we're not in the boot. Take a minute and try this with poder. I'd really like you to actually draw out your boot here. Go ahead and pause me, fill in the blanks, and check your work if you feel confident. Otherwise, follow along with me now. We will be first figuring out the stem, pod. We're going to drop our ending. Our stem is going to have is going to stem change from O to UE in the boot. So my new stem is puede. My yo form ending is O, puedo. And I'm going to go ahead and do that for the rest of these. Be careful, poder is an ER verb, so make sure you're using your ER endings. Notice I'm out of the boot here, I'm back to the O. Podemos. Podes. And then back in the boot, pueden. How'd we do? Check your answers. Make sure what I have matches what you have. Take a look at dormir. Here's our second example. To sleep. Again, follow along with me if you'd like. Otherwise, pause me, try it, and double check. Dorm is my stem. IR is my ending. I'm getting rid of it. I'm going to change the O here to UE in my boot, which I'm going to draw out to remind myself. All right. So now that I've done that, I'm going to fill in my blanks. Duermo. Duermes. Duerme. I'm out of my boot. Dormimos. Careful, dormir is an IR verb. Dormis. And back in the boot. Duermen. Bad handwriting here. All right. So remember, in the boot, we change O to UE. Out of the boot, we do not. One last note here. Poder, to be able to, is almost always followed by an infinitive. Remember, infinitive is a verb that is not conjugated. Ends in AR, ER, IR, like comer, hablar, escribir. If we take a look at these example sentences, puedo is my form of poder and ir is my infinitive. Am I able to go to the bathroom? We are able to run quickly. The teacher is able to speak Spanish. Just something to keep in mind, poder will almost always be followed by an infinitive. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching and taking notes. And you are ready to move on to the next activity. If you are confused or you need some one-on-one help, now is the right time to come find me. Adios.